I've been coaching for over 20 years and I've helped so many golfers create more power, work on their lag, which helps them with their strike, their consistency, their distance. But what I find is they're doing it in completely the wrong way. They're focusing on completely the wrong movements. I want to clear all of it up today. I want to take a deep dive into what the wrists and arms are actually doing in the golf swing so you really deeply understand it. And I'm going to give you two really simple drills. They're going to help you create that lag, create that power to help you hit better golf shots. Now we've got the HackMotion device on my wrist. We're going to use it to, say, find out exactly what is happening. And I want to start with how to actually use your wrists in the golf swing. Actually how we create power through those wrists. Then we're going to come on to that really simple drill. It's going to help you in your downswing. So as I just stand naturally, just let my hand and arm fall very naturally. What you can see through the HackMotion device is very close to zero. And what that is telling me is that my wrist is in a very neutral position. This is just me standing neutrally. So when we look at sort of wrist set in the golf swing, we generally would say that that is when we create about a 90-degree angle between the forearm and the club. So we're sort of in this position here, and you can see that would be my wrist set. This would be no wrist set. This would be wrist set. So if I put myself into a position of sort of, let's say, wrist set here, what is that number on HackMotion? It's plus 10. That's very close to where it was at the start. Remember, it was at plus 4. That's even there, plus 9. So if this is me with wrist set, how is that wrist set the same value as when my hand was just naturally at the side? Well, because the wrist is in the same position. So this isn't wrist set. This is my wrist in its neutral position, its natural position. The wrist set happens at setup. Let me explain what I mean. Look at the numbers that are coming through that HackMotion. There is my hand in its natural position. You can see there, plus 6, plus 7. But watch what happens when I actually place my hand on the golf club. I am going to take my fingers, I'm going to point them down to the ground. See that number changing all the way up to plus 30. And then I'm going to place my hand on the golf club. So now that number is minus 36. So for me to get to that number, what do I actually have to do? I had to take my hand from its natural position, pointing the fingers down. That's creating that angle, look, between my fingers and my forearm. There's my value at minus 33, and I place my hand on the golf club. This is my setup. So in the golf swing, what I'm actually doing is taking my wrist from this sort of down cocked position, and I'm very simply moving it back to its natural position. There you can see there it's plus 7, very much where it was when we did that demonstration at the start. And if I take my hand off now, what are the fingers like relative to my hand? They're in this natural position. So here's what happens in the golf swing. We go hand in its natural position. We point the fingers down to place the hand on the golf club. And then through our backswing, we simply take our hand and our wrist and we move it back to neutral. That is wrist set. So what is going to really rob you of power and distance is if when you place your hand on the golf club, you only cock those fingers down by that much. You can see there that value is minus 6, minus 7. That golf club is much more through the palm. That is how so many golfers grip the golf club. I have given myself far less power because that number now is only minus 12. So when I now make a backswing and I'm moving my hand back to its sort of natural position, I've got nowhere near the sort of power and the leverage that I had before. From here, I can't create power, I can't create lag, I can't create energy, I can't create speed, I can't control the club face, I can't do any of those things. Now, if I want to create some leverage, what am I going to do? I'm going to start to bend my arms. That's going to give me that sort of angle that I need, but it's coming from the wrong place. So the first thing I'd love you to understand about wrists is that when we talk about wrist set and setting the wrists, all we're actually doing is moving that wrist back to neutral. Let's take a look at that shot that I've just hit. I'll explain why this is on my wrist in a moment. We're going to run through this graph. Now I appreciate that it's a graph and we need to go through it, but understanding this could well be the key to unlocking your best golf because this is where so many golfers get it wrong. Let's first of all look at the purple line. That purple line is measuring my arm in terms of its rotation. My arm can rotate like this for the golf, and you can see that I've got this little orange device here to just help us sort of visualize that. It's going to start at address, and then that line goes down. So in my backswing, my arm is rotating like this. That's the backswing. Notice how this little device went from roughly level with the ground to pointing up, and then it stays there, and you can see right at the top of the golf swing, nothing changes. As I go into my downswing, nothing changes, and then around about halfway into my downswing, it starts to rotate back to where it came from. So think of it like this: setup, backswing, top of the backswing, halfway down, impact, and then it continues to do this. That's what is happening in the golf swing. Now, the green line is my wrist and this movement here. So we set up here, halfway into my backswing, my wrist sets. That's the top. We spoke about how we do that. Then again, what happens as we start down? Nothing. It stays the same. And then this is the key point here. At the same time that the purple line starts to go back up, my wrists start to uncock. The key thing is, what do they do from the top of the backswing for the first part of the downswing? Nothing. They stay the same. Now, I want to focus specifically on this one. This is the one that you need to focus on, not the wrist set. Because when does my wrist start to uncock? Well, it's actually around about just after halfway into the downswing. That wrist is not holding right the way through to the last second and then uncocking. It's actually happening relatively soon. The one that's important is this one. Let me explain why that is so important. As I take a setup, and we're going to use this sort of down the line view here, this is my arm rotating in the backswing. Notice what this orange device does. As it rotates, it starts to point up towards the sky. We can see that happening in the backswing by the line going down. I get to the top, and then what happens as I start down? Nothing until around about here. What did this orange device do? It stayed at the same angle. What do I see so many golfers doing? They rotate the wrist this way, but as soon as they start their downswing, they rotate it back. Now what's happening to that orange device? It's starting to change in its angle. So they would start to rotate the arm back to where it came from before they start to uncock these wrists. Now if I do that with a golf club, notice how the orange stick points up. As I turn it down, what am I getting? Steep, across the line, out to in. What am I going to do from here? Stand up, early extend. So if you're someone who gets steep, over the top, you swing across the ball, out to in, you fade it, you slice it, and you're trying to create more power, holding this angle is not going to do you any good at all if you're not focusing on the other angle. Look at that face on, loads of lag stored up, loads of lag. Sure, that's powerful, but it's no good because look where that is. Look where the club shaft is. The one that I want you to focus on, the one that's going to help you play better golf, is rotating this in the backswing and holding that longer into the downswing before you start to rotate it back. Look at the difference in my swing shape. When I take that device, I rotate it up and I keep it pointing up towards the sky, up towards the sky, up towards the sky for as long as I can. Look where the golf club is, in a really great position. Now I can take that orange device and I can spin it towards the target into impact. That is now going to kick the golf club out and help me create speed and power, but also create this approach angle, which is going to help me give the ball the right trajectory off the club face and the right curve through the air. I'm going to be able to hit straighter shots, draw shots if that's what I want to hit. But the key thing is, it's going to help me get into this key position. I see so many golfers on camera worrying about what they see from the face on. This angle here. Ignore that. I want you to see what you see from this angle. As soon as you see this forearm starting to rotate the opposite way, you are in a whole world of trouble. It does not matter how much lag you hold from that face on, it's not going to do you any good. So when you're practicing, do this. Why not? This is really, really simple. This is just a very simple device that's I can mold and bend to where I want it to be, and I can put it around my forearm to represent the back of my hand. Also, that HackMotion device is on there, and I can really, really simply get myself to the top. As I start down, I keep that pointing up, I keep it pointing up, I keep it pointing up. That puts you in this position, and now I can spin it towards the target. That is what is going to give me those shots. I mean, look how good that shot was. It was low, it was drawing, it was well struck, and look at the data. Exactly what I needed it to be. The graph stays from the top before I start to unload everything.